resources. So, yeah, well, we're committed on the ice to the pods, and we're also going to discuss opening up some additional pods in some areas.
Yeah, because we're hearing that some of them were overwhelmed, particularly on the west side of town.
Yeah, no, we were out there. We saw that. So as soon as we saw that, we got on the phone and made sure that we were replenishing supplies as fast as they were leaving, but also bringing additional commodities to the area.
Thank you.
Rick, we're talking about bringing one on to Woodland Heights for dealing with some of that. The Pensacola Village, I know, doesn't have power, and I know there are some issues there. In the meeting we just had, the director was very gracious to work with us, as he said, on new sites. I think Woodland Heights is going to be one of them, and looking to bring some tarps to that area as well.
We may have had some damage to local infrastructure due to, the barges from a local contractor. Does the fact that it was not necessarily direct damage from the storm, does that affect any of the funding arrangements, or is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about the barges. I'm just kidding. The commitment from the governor is, that FDOT is going to work with the contractor, that the restoration of the bridge is going to move forward. As far as, how that will all get paid, whether that will be something that we seek reimbursement on, whether that will be insurance proceeds, whether that will wind up in litigation, that is all to obviously be determined. Obviously, when it comes to reimbursement, if there are other ways that money can be recouped, then we'll look at that, of course. But that is not going to impede the progress that needs to be made on the bridge.
Sheriff Morgan, we've heard that several of the sites were overwhelmed today. Traffic was an issue. Could you give us a report on that?
That is correct. We had to respond to 2 sites, actually in the north part of the county. And what we're seeing, Rick, is an obvious frustration. We're past the 72 hours,
right.
And we ask everybody to be prepared for the first 72. And so our public, rightly expects us to be able to respond after that 3-day rule. And so it was a little bit of a delay getting from the state, getting the pod set up in some of the locations, et cetera. And to be quite honest with you, I think the National Guard got caught. We were there. The call for assistance came out, and we responded. Order was quickly restored. We found in those situations, as long as it is orderly, meaning, get your barricades set up, get your cones out, get the people set up to do the distribution. As long as you give the impression of orderliness, so will the public. They will respond in kind. So I really wouldn't call it much of an issue. It was more of a blip on the radar that they got over. I don't think they were expecting that many people to show up that quickly, and that's really what they had to deal with.
Thank you.
Sheriff, since you're there, have you been able to access all corners of the community? Are there still any pockets that are inaccessible, or areas y'all haven't been?
We're everywhere, and again, while I'd like to take full credit for that, we're working with the PPD, National Guard, all of our county partners from emergency management, the swift boat rescue folks, et cetera. But no, we've got all 4 corners covered at this time. We're doing a lot of calls for service now for health and welfare checks. I think people were calling in and saying, hey, I'm going to ride this thing out, I'm okay. Well, guess what, folks? With no power, your cell phone battery goes down. And so now we're getting calls from out of state, could you go check on Joe, my brother, or, whoever, my aunt. We haven't heard from them in a couple of days. These are the folks that got into the hurricane party mode. And we're going to ride this thing out and have a party. And as I jokingly said the other day, we're looking for some humor in this situation. They've sobered up and decided this wasn't such a good idea. And so now their family's worried about them. But that's working well, too. And again, we are confirming a possible carbon monoxide death from a generator, unfortunately. As our county administrator, Ms. Gilley's done day after day, folks, you have to be careful with chainsaws, careful with your generators. The coroner hasn't confirmed that death yet, but we're pretty sure that that's what it is. But we've got the county covered with all of our state partners and city partners. Folks, we're looking good. We're on our feet. Hopefully we get power restored here shortly, and that's the major first step forward.
Administrator Gator, thank you for coming to Escambia County.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. You spent some time today on the Pensacola Bay Bridge. Can you give us some of your observations of what you saw? Because we really haven't been able to see it because we're all landlocked.
Yeah, it's quite a serious situation, impact at a number of different locations. We looked at one location, I think, on the Pensacola City side, but there's multiple by barges, roadways missing or disrupted in many different ways. I'm not an engineer, but it's going to take some time. I think Director Moss was alluding to months, so there's some serious work that has to happen. But it is a serious situation on that bridge.
I would add, Rick, that the DOT officials there shared that there is still settling that is going on with some of the spans and with some of the pilings. So it is impossible at the current moment to complete the assessment of the extent of that damage and how long the reconstruction effort will take until you get that settling complete.
Matt, you've traveled across the entire district. How would you, was Escambia County hit the hardest by this?
Yeah.
What you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen flooding on the backside of Gulf Breeze that was pretty significant. We saw some flooding in the low-lying areas in Destin. Here, of the storm surge and the flooding created a backup that we didn't see as much to the east, because as the water built up, there was no outflow, and you got a little bit more of that into Choctawhatchee Bay than you got into Pensacola Bay.
Do you guys have a ballpark estimate of how many people have received help so far on those pods?
We won't have that till this evening.
And has there been any shortage of supplies, or has everybody who's been there been able to get what they needed?
So we actually did have a couple of pods that did run out, and that's why Director Moskowitz was mentioning to you that we have a convoy. Basically, the state is really here to help us to resupply. Some of them were replenished, but we do have more coming in to replenish all of them.
And what would your message be to people? You know, a lot of people are tired and frustrated. What would your message be to them at this time if they haven't been able to get the help they've needed?
Yeah, so one of the things that we continue to talk about each day during our briefings is, you know, it is difficult. There is fatigue setting in. We're going into a number of days, but courteousness and patience is always helpful. What we're trying to do is keep people off the roads, because that allows your service, your utilities, your law enforcement to help get everything restored. And I think once we get things, as many things as we can back to normal as possible, I think people will feel better. We're still going to have the damage. You're still going to see, you know, debris and things, and your power, and then other things that you are common to see. You'll feel better. But please be safe, and please do not put your generators in an area that does not have clear ventilation. We have to remove a generator from a multi-residence facility. It was dangerous. So thankfully, it got resolved, but we just can't impress this upon you enough. Even the administrator said that he has continually seen that post-event fatalities tend to be substantial. So,
What's the name of that facility?
I'm not at liberty to say at this moment, but I'll be more than happy to get it to you.
Okay.
Sheriff Morgan, how has, I guess, the curfews, how has that been working out, and have you guys had to issue any citations?
Curfew's working well. We just run the data today. We've had almost 100 contacts for people out and about that should not have been out and about. And again, I want to emphasize to the county, we're not on a lockdown. We've told our officers to be very reasonable in contact with citizens. You know, verify why you're outside in a courteous way. Are you going to work, from work? You know, ask some basic questions. Of course, very few people now that we've changed the time from midnight to 6 a.m. are going to be out, you know, at midnight going to work, if you will. Even those who are shift workers, I mean, they tend to be there before 12 o'clock. But yeah, it's significant. We found, and we get calls from citizens, you know, that there are groups of people wandering around in their neighborhood. And so we ran the numbers today. We've had 100 contacts since the curfew went in, so it's working. I can tell you we get calls from citizens also thanking the officers for being out there. We've got power, they can't leave, because remember, when they left and evacuated, they didn't take their guns and their jewelry with them. That unfortunately was left in the homes. So you have people sleeping in homes without any power. Thank God the weather's changed. And again, they're vulnerable. They have no lights, you know, etc. And they've told us to hear law enforcement patrolling the area, you know, makes them feel real secure. And so we'll continue with that until we get power restored and there's some sort of semblance of normalcy comes back to our county. We've had no confrontations because of the curfew. That's a good thing.
Reports of looting?
Yes, we've had some looting on the west side. Gulf Breeze reported some looting 2 days ago. Again, it's minimal, like on the beaches, etc. I mean, we've got a heavy and massive patrol. Of course, that's a much more confined area out in Perdido Key. But, you know, you can't forget Mayfair, Montclair, Inslee. and up in the north end of the county, in the Canton-Molino area. There's people up there that's homes are damaged too that they're not in. So we've got to make sure that we are consistent in our actions throughout. Everybody pays for law enforcement protection, and everybody gets law enforcement protection.
And those cases of looting, were they at people's homes
Yes,
or businesses?
homes.
Okay.
Commissioner May.
Thank you all so much.
Commissioner May, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll do one more question if you want.
Commissioner May, you were at Brownsville most of the day today. Can you kind of talk to us about what you saw at Brownsville and how the distribution?
Well, first, let me just say, a quick phone call to Congressman GAETZ made a big difference, and Director Moskowitz and FEMA has all been here today, Rick, and it's just been a great collaboration. And Matt, I'm very grateful for y'all being here. And we saw there a lot of people who were in need, who needed resources, got the resources that they needed. I've been at 3 sites today, Rick, and the lines are still coming. People are still needing ice, they're still needing water, and because of Matt and the state, we're being able to deliver those services.
You also, have you been to Forest Creek apartment?
Yes.
What's going on there?
Well, there was a feeding out there earlier today. That unfortunately, that's a repetitive flooding situation that obviously, there's been a great partnership with FEMA in addressing it. I think that the citizens there are hurting. The opportunity, not my district, but there's going to have to be a lot of more resources provided there to help the situation that's occurring out there, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for being here.